Liking DmC Reboot is a thing of torment. My tormented soul was left without consolation for many years. But then an angel came, Splinter 3303, a man of reason and logic. He responded to all the foolishness that the Devil May Cry community said about this game, and finally put my soul at ease. In following his example, I will do the same. There is a particular video of the so-called channel Brain Alert, who has some, let's say, very bad arguments, if you can call it that, about this game. And I, therefore, will Splinter 3303 it. This will be my impression of 3303, not on voice, but on fairness. But people of Brain Alert, just for you and me to be on good terms, did you know that in DmC 3 there is a secret skin for Lady in a white jumpsuit? A vision to behold. To see it, you need to go on her boss fight with the skin Legendary Dark Knight or Coatless DmC1, or if you are using Vergil, use Corrupt Vergil or Coatless Vergil. A gift. Use it in the way you see fit. Now, what was your point calling Cat a prostitute with a gun? Cat in the game doesn't really touch any guns. Yes, you said you skipped the cutscenes.
Unless there's a canonical reason that I totally didn't skip over and ignored because fuck this game.
Just say the quality of your arguments. And what does this mean? Does this make the character bad? Does this make it inherently unlikable? Please, I just need to know what you were trying to say. What is the point? The guy is funny. He has some valid points, not on DmC. He's just hate all over the shop. But supposedly, he is judging on enjoyment, quality, boss design, and arena design. What quality and enjoyment stands for is unclear.
Honestly though, this is just a huge disrespect to Vergil's character, the legacy that he's built for himself clearly in all of the Devil May Cry series. What the fuck were they even thinking about?
It's a whole new character. It's a whole new universe. And this was literally Vergil turning into the MC3 Vergil, needing more power. And by the way, he said that Hollow Vergil is worse than Mungus, spawn of Mungus, the succubus. Like, what? It is almost literally the original Vergil. And you said it, it's the best boss in the game. How dumb can you be? It is literally almost the same boss.
First off, what a fucking disastrous antagonist Mungus is in DmC Devil May Cry. If you don't know who Mungus is in DmC Devil May Cry, he is basically a big greedy businessman that just does whatever he wants. And let's just say that shit don't work in this fucking game.
Why? Why the big bad demon does not work for DmC Reboot? It has worked for DmC 1, it has worked for DmC 4, it has worked for DmC 5.
Most of his monologues and the dialogue he has in this game amounts to,
"Ah, I am a greedy businessman. I love money."
"Why did you kill my child?" I will ask you again. Why did you kill my child?
Because you killed my mother.
Ah, so it was revenge. I see.
It was more than that.
Oh,
It was for freedom.
freedom. Well, you seem to have all the freedom you need. The freedom to murder my heir.
I'm not talking about my freedom. I'm talking about mankind's.
Mankind. And what would mankind do with freedom, do you suppose? Because when I arrived, they had it. And what do you think they did with it? They fought, they killed, they starved. They brought prosperity, they brought structure. And what have you brought? Besides violence, war, death. Completely useless antagonist. Most of the tension and any of the anxiety you normally have for a boss fight, like say Mungus from DmC1, Vergil, hell even Gandondorf, all those other boss fights that are really well told and have a good story. Yeah, throw that shit out the window with this boss fight.
Oh, but Mungus has such a big presence on one. You kill a boss and he appears and says you failed. And he steals your kill. He is so intimidating. I was shivering my timbers when I saw him. It is truly a work of art. DmC1, Shakespearean magnificent. Berserk doesn't even compare. And Mungus is such a complex character. I really don't know how they could come up with something like Big Bad Demon King. It is a work of art. It truly is.
Lady friend who's not a prostitute with a gun cat gets kidnapped by the U.S. police, fucking FBI, CIA, FICA government agency. I guess that Mungus somehow controls.
A big plot point is Mungus controls humanity. There is a cutscene that Mungus is blackmailing the president. How can he not control the CIA as well?
Dante and Vergil basically formulate a plan to where Dante will go down to Lilith's club and capture the spawn of Mungus in order to form a plea deal with Mungus so they can trade Cat for the Mungus spawn. And then Vergil fucking kills the baby. The boss fight itself is pretty much nothing to be excited about. It's pretty much just your average DmC Devil May Cry boss fight where you hit a thing, the thing goes down, you hit another thing, the thing goes down, and then you get to just fucking unload on whatever weak point the boss has.
Why is this a bad thing? You can say this exact same phrase in a good way and for 80% of all the bosses in gaming. Not every boss has to be a rival. Now, I do agree with you that Vergil is a better boss than any of them, truly. But what about the things you were judging on? Arena design, apparently you were judging music as well, because Bury the Light made Dante from DmC 5 the best boss in the franchise for some god-forsaken reason. And the boss design. Not every design has to be beautiful. Not every succubus has to be hot. Yeah, I know that Devil May Cry fans are not the brightest of people, but try. At least try. You skipped
The
everything.
only reason I put this high up on the list is simply because it gives you the freedom to do combos, but even then, what the fuck does it matter? It's still boring, it's still useless, it's still pathetic.
I'll tell you what does matter. So, in case you didn't know, the basic premise of a Devil May Cry game is being stylish. And being stylish is making combos. And the cool thing is on Spawn of Mungus, you can have ground combos. Actually, is the best way to do damage. DmC Reboot has top 3 best ground combat of DmC games, probably only being surpassed by DmC 1 or DmC 3. Why I say that is because in DmC Reboot you can intertwine the combos of the weapons, which is very cool, and you can do aerial attacks almost on the ground because of the inverse rainstorm evade thing. Some cool tech on the ground combos. DmC3 has the crazy combos, the ones you have to mash the button. They are very useful for crowd control on Dante Must Die. That is a very interesting and it's the best DMD on the franchise. You have to manage so well the enemies there. But just because of that, DmC4 has that thing you have to do like 2 attacks with 1 weapon, use Yamato once, change weapon, 2 attacks, and so on, but it is just this. And DmC1 is probably because of the punches. They had to make the ground combat really rewarding because aerial combat was almost non-existent. Because of this, it's really rewarding and complex. The game knew that to convey impact, you have to have an actual good sound design and the camera shake. That DmC Reboot, in my opinion, does have the better camera shake, because not only it shakes, but it's not that shakes every time the same way. It is actually reactive to the attacks you use. So it's really cool. That's why I say that DmC Reboot might have top 2 actually. And funny thing is actually not useless. It gives you more damage output and more stylish points. That makes you have a better ranking on the mission. I don't think that you are being quite honest here.
There's no fucking value to Lilith as an antagonist.
Why would Mungus care about one of his whores?
Lilith was never supposed to be an antagonist. She is literally Mundus's whore. She's a victim.
The level design, I guess, is okay. The level takes place in what's called Lilith's Club, but besides that, thank the Lord above that this boss fight is at least quick and it's at least painless, like most of these fucking boss fights under this boss should have been. Fuck the savior, I hate that guy.
I find it funny you always put music that is not the music of the boss. I do think you like the music of Devil May Cry Reboot. You're just not saying to make it worse. But that is just a theory. A hypocrite theory.
Dante is tasked with taking out the secret ingredient to a soda that is poisoning thousands of humans in his town and turning them into demons. Or some shit like that, I don't remember. Which turns out to be a succubus. Oh, I hate this story. First of all, before we get to anything, I just want to mention that this technically is the same thing as this. I just want you to put that in your head for a second. Holy fuck, this is awful.
And this is technically the same as this. In case you didn't know, Morgan wasn't the first succubus ever made. First Japanese succubus ever made. The original succubus were not so hot and did not dress like dominatrixes.
The succubus boss fight is pretty much another nothing boss fight in DmC Devil May Cry. It literally has the exact same mechanics as that B.F.B boss fight with Mungus.
BfB stands for Big Fucking Boss. See what he did there? My friend that is watching this video. He put the F word in the middle of the phrase. Look how funny he is. You know the real GF. For someone who really hates the reboot, you really do talk like him. In fact, there's probably more F words in this video than Dante said in the whole game.
Where you attack her hands and then grapple to another position and do the same thing over and over again. The only difference between this boss fight and the Mungus boss fight is that this boss fight has this cutscene. Besides the really funny cutscenes though, this boss fight has no real legs to stand on. The only reason we put it this high up on the list is because it is a quick boss fight. As you'll learn with some of these boss fights on this list, the quicker, the better some of these fucking things are.
What do you mean on this list? Wasn't this supposed to be a worst from best? The next boss gonna be worse than the succubus? This is your video. How can you fail this?
Another thing this boss gives you for some reason is the Eric's gloves. I'm not pronouncing that right, but man, who gives a shit? There is no real reason for Dante to get these big ass ropes in his hands unless there's a canonical reason that I totally didn't.
My friend, there is nothing linking Cerberus to a nunchaku, like nothing. I don't know why you are trying to make so much logic out of this, out of just trying to make the reboot sound worse.
This is a really shitty parody of Bill O'Reilly. This was pretty much the devs trying to get back at their agenda and what they thought would be cool and edgy and would send a message to Bill O'Reilly, when in reality I don't think it did any of that shit. But anyway.
A parody doesn't have to be so taken seriously. And like, why would they even do this? What would they gain for making agendas in a hack and slash game?
Story-wise, the reason that Dante has to go over this little dipshit, B.F.Bs, is that Bob has been spreading fake news about Dante's little group of the Order, and has also revealed substantial information about the whereabouts of the Order's leader, Vergil. So Vergil and his friend, who's not a prostitute with a gun, Cat, made Dante undertake a mission to destroy B.F.Bs, so he doesn't spread any more fake information about this motherfucking Order. That. Now, what I might say here is very controversial, but I do think that this fucking boss fight is really, really fucking awesome. I think it's one of the most shittingly enjoyable boss fights, besides some of the other fucking ones I will talk about throughout this fucking list.
This is your video. How can you fail this?
But don't get me wrong, this boss fight is still pretty AIDS. This boss fight involves you fighting Bob's big ass forehead, and involves you jumping on little circles with your Eric's gloves, and then getting to attack his weak point. Where I've seen that shit before, is you take out Bob's big ass forehead, and then you have to play a pretty cool ass part of the boss fight, where it involves you fighting normal enemies. However, the only difference is you're being filmed by a news crew. The editing and the gameplay here is pretty fucking cool. However, outside of this fucking gameplay, there is nothing enjoyable or fun about the boss fight itself. There are pretty much 4 things you must fucking do. Besides that, there is nothing shui about this goddamn boss fight. The fact that the normal common enemies pose more of a threat than the actual boss, B.F.Bs himself, is pretty fucking ridiculous. If this boss fight didn't have a lot more shit going for it, then I'd probably bump this up higher on this fucking tier list. But instead, we're left with a boring ass boss fight that has barely anything going for it except the one thing. So, breaking news, Ninja Theory, your fucking boss fight sucks.
Breaking news, Bob. You're fired.
Oh yeah, let's ignore the good part of the boss and don't talk about the things you were judging on as well. And DmC Reboot Bad.
Lady is so fucking hot, it's unreal. I cannot control myself whenever she appears on screen. My mind goes fucking feral. The beast is unleashed. I go primal. She's literally perfect. I want to take her to Burger King and treat her to water, but she's never tried one. The fact that she's not real drives me to the verge of fucking suicide. I don't really want to kill myself, so I don't. She is all that keeps me going. I bet she has that vice grip, gorilla strength, military grade, highly experimental, incredibly deadly, splishy, splashy, gushy, mushy.
Oh, and here we are, the final boss fight of DmC Devil May Cry. This shit's gonna be long, so strap the fuck in. Throughout this listing, I've honestly struggled to rank a lot of the DmC bosses myself, since I'm the only one who's played the game, which is why I bullshitted my way through most of the boss fights due to them being frighteningly easy. That being said though, I do believe that the Vergil boss fight is the most decent among the group. The boss fight on its own is a pretty decent boss fight. Obviously it's Vergil. Even in a half-baked shitty reboot, you cannot ever get a Vergil fight wrong, and I'm glad the devs didn't fuck up royally on that part. I say this for the sole reason that there's no stupid fucking puking shit, pussy-faced gross-out factor. There's no hit the big hand, head, or eye minigame. It's all just brute force and challenge in this fight with Vergil. And hey, surprisingly, it makes the game really, really fun. Of course, with any boss fight, well, a good boss fight, Vergil will enter a bunch of different phases. The first is normal Vergil, with the standard Vergil moveset. Some of his moves include counter, rapid slash, downbreaker, counter. He also gets a new air attack where he throws some sort of spinning fucking boomerang at you. I don't know why they did just add judgment cut, but hey, whatever, bro. As his phases go on, Vergil starts to slowly add more moves to his arsenal, like a charging air attack, summon swords, a ground boomerang attack, and many more. But the main cream de la cream is the doppelganger phase. This part of the battle is also pretty good, with there actually being a challenge, although that's only due to Vergil being a major asshole and traveling up your ass, Sean Bean style. Jesus. One thing I enjoy with each of these phases is how they transition. My favorite is the part where Dante tells Vergil it's not too late, and then Vergil replies, yes it is. But that's about all the praise I can give this boss fight. Because now we're gonna really get into it. My biggest issue with this fight is the fact that there's so much potential this fight could have had. Most of the boss fight feels rushed and half-assed. This is mostly because the total amount of build-up for this fight is 4 minutes.
4 minutes.
Yes, there is a build-up, it is a foreshadow. In case you didn't know, a foreshadow has to be subtle, not like Dante sees Vergil killing a pregnant woman and saying, I hope he doesn't betray me in the end, and he winks at the camera. I know that Devil May Cry fans are not very accustomed to well thought out stories, being DmC 3 the only one whose story actually has interesting characters and all. There is build-up, there is foreshadowing. A lot of times Vergil doesn't care at all about Cat's well-being.
We trade their lives.
Interesting. I just knows less than I thought. He knows my name, but that's it. Not that I'm your brother, nor that I'm Nephilim. She was in strong holdout. Yeah, she did well. But we can't save her. What do you mean? You can't seriously think that I would trade your life for hers. No, I'm not saying. Apart from the fact that you're my brother, you're the key.
I'm not saying we trade me for her. I'm saying we offer another trade. Captain Mungus and Mistress Lilith.
Why would Mundus care about one of his whores?
The fact that he killed a pregnant woman, you know, things, subtle things.
That's right. And honestly, while I don't really care about the story for bosses in these types of games.
Oh, you do care the story. And if you don't care, why didn't you say this before? Like, it would have been useful. Or is this just the classic tactic of saying a lot of bad things about the game, and in the end you just say, but in the end it's a good game and the people who like the classic strategy.
This is the final fucking boss. You'd think there'd be a ton of build-up, much like Vergil had in the other games.
I don't care about the story, except when I do. Go figure.
You can argue, for real, there doesn't need to be this complex Shakespearean-level story with Vergil, and that's partly true. DmC 3 barely tells you anything about Vergil, and yet when you make it to the top of 10 Negru and face Vergil for the first time, he looks and feels like a big fucking deal. Even casuals who play DmC 3 or 5 for the first time know that Vergil is the shit. He doesn't need any backstory. But narratively, this game is different. Based off the clear inspiration from movies like Fight Club, They Live, and many other movies, they needed to have a better planned out story.
First, proof? Second, why? Why exactly this one needs to be a Shakespearean masterpiece? Probably Reboot Bad.
And sure, while there are some decent lines between the two, it still doesn't excuse the cringy acting and writing that plagues this entire game.
I don't know, man, go watch the 8-hour video of Splinter. He will say it better than anything I could say.
Now, obviously, behind the scenes, this was meant to be the first out of many boss fights, which would have happened in the sequel. So maybe the devs just wanted to purposefully scale back on the build-up. But even then, why would you do that? Why would you just not wait till the sequel or the DLC to build? Oh, alright. The DLC. Oh, they got me wilding up. But, in all honesty, this boss fight isn't that bad. I'd even say it's great. But the biggest issue is the writing is still shit, and it's attached to a company that went up and pissed all over the DmC community.
Oh, is it? So, in a ranking of bosses from worst to best, Capcom has a weight on it, conveniently only on DmC Reboot, of course. And, as you said, you don't care much about the story of those games, except when you do.
Sure, while the game isn't as bad as the community makes it out to be.
There, called it. The classic tactic. Spending 40 minutes saying that the game is bad, but in the end you say, yeah, it's good. It's a really good tactic, I'm gonna be honest. Like, every time someone tries to argue with you, you just say, but in the end of the video, I said it's good.
It still almost killed the entire goddamn... Why? Why didn't the devs look over this? Why didn't they look over this before releasing it to the public? Ah!
DmC 4 almost killed the franchise. That's why the reboot exists. Capcom tried to make something different. She didn't understood that Devil May Cry fans really hate change.